A Reformed Druid Anthology, Volume 2, The Books of the Apocrypha, Combined and Expanded. Dedication to Jan Johnson, the first Reformed Druid to write an epistle. In this audio version, these are selected writings between Reformed Druids from 1963 up to the foundation of ADF in 1983. Preface to the Carleton Apocrypha, 1993. My purpose in printing the writings here collected is, of course, threefold. First, I would like to preserve some of the history and tradition of Carleton Druidism that was not preserved in the Druid Chronicles Reformed, or that developed after the Chronicles were written. The intended audience here is the Carleton Grove itself. Second, in the face of the growth of neo-pagan Druidism, I would like to have something to offer those interested in the original, non-pagan variety, something more complete and representative than the Chronicles alone. And third, I would like to discharge a long-standing promise to do something about the first two purposes. This collection is a real hodgepodge, and despite my best efforts, has nothing like the aesthetic unity of the original Chronicles, which are known to every Reformed Druid. Also, it has nothing like the currency of the original Chronicles, which are known to every Reformed Druid. Most of these Apocrypha are known to few, though many Carleton Druid will find familiar material herein. Although this is not a complete collection of all Druidic writings from Carleton, I have tried to keep this selection reasonably Catholic, at least to represent the period from the founding in 1963 to about 1976, when my close contact with the Carleton Grove began to fade. There are no neo-pagan selections here, since in the early days the Grove was non-pagan, even arguably Christian. Certainly the founders would not have characterized Reformed Druidism as one of the oldest neo-pagan groups in America, although on the strength of its founding in 1963 it seems to enjoy that reputation in the neo-pagan community. In recent years, after the period of which these writings are drawn, the Druids at Carleton have become more interested in neo-paganism and Native American spiritual practices. Many would call themselves neo-pagans. We old-style Druids have no quarrel with this, for anyone's Druidism is one's own affair. I believe Druidism transcends the nice distinctions we habitually make to compartmentalize the variety of the human spiritual experience. And I hope newer Druids will still find this material of interest, even, perhaps, of value. Richard M. Shelton, Midsummer Day, 1993. Earliest selections: The Quiet Years. A Spring Thaw by David Frangquist, 1964. New to ARDA 2. It has been a mild winter. I hope that this foreshadows an early spring thaw, in Laird and Severance as well as in the Arb. After the ground has dried, and a small flock of seekers after religious truth makes its return to Monument Hill, I hope that they will find that the fog of religious discrimination has also cleared. Last fall, as well as the spring before it, was a difficult one. The college has proclaimed that the religious requirement may be satisfied by participating in worship in one's own church, yet several churches have not been granted the privilege of credit. Among them is the Reformed Druids of North America. The reason for this sort of discrimination has never been fully justified. Charges have been made that the Reformed Druids have not been in existence long enough to be given credit. This is rather like saying that Christianity was not a religion until, say, the time of Constantine. But the fact is that, although the Druids have been actively organized at Carleton only since last April, the movement springs from a tradition older than Christianity itself, ancient Celtic Druidism. It has been said that the Carleton Druids are not serious about their religion, but an altar on Monument Hill, weighing over a ton of rock, carried there manually, is evidence of their seriousness. Finally, Druidism is said to have no relevance to the college's so-called Judeo-Christian tradition. I would only point out that Christian missionaries pushing into Gaul and Germany from Rome in order to more easily convert large segments of the local population incorporated large amounts of Druidic practice into the tradition of the Christian Church. I would assume that when the college says tradition, it means to include more than simply the Old and New Testaments. It might also be noted that credit is even denied to students participating in discussion conducted by missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. I really should not have dealt with these charges, for to do so would seem to affirm the principle there is some basis on which a religious group may be denied credit. This is not the case. No clearly definable basis can be established. Any basis for judgment must be purely subjective. For religion is essentially a question of personal conviction. This is the reason for the failure of the student negotiation committees. Committees may provide help in solving political problems, but not in religious problems. The committees have tried to deal in logical arguments. Religion deals in faith. Dr. Maitland has said that religion is concerned with ultimate personal questions. Reformed Druids could not agree more strongly. Perhaps the characteristic which distinguishes them, however, is the seeking of these ultimate questions through nature. John B. Sparks has demonstrated that all of the major religions of the modern world have developed directly or indirectly from nature worship. Druids find themselves concerned, then, with the questions of the origins of religion and the ultimate nature of religious experience. Their reward for this concern has been simply discrimination. Druids find themselves concerned, then, with the questions of the origins of religion and the ultimate nature of religious experience. The Reformed Druids of North America do not plan any mass demonstrations of strength, nor do they wish to personally attack any member of the administration for this handling of the problem. They seek only to make their case known. Reformed Druids do not seek direct abolition of the religious requirement, nor do they desire to upset modern religious institutions. They merely seek recognition and credit for their personal efforts in dealing with ultimate personal questions. But that as spring brings good weather to Monument Hill, it will also bring good news of acceptance. David Frangquist, broadcast of KARL AM Radio, 1964. The Book of Faith, by David Fisher, 1964. Carleton and Berkeley Apocryphas. I, David, Archdruid of the Grove at Carleton, write these words so that those who come after me may know and understand some of the feelings which moved me to found the Druid movement. The tone of these writings will differ from the rest of the books, but I write as I do for clarity, and, in accordance with the Druid practice, make no request that my words become dogma. In the beginning, Druidism was formed as a protest against a religious requirement at Carleton College, not an affirmation of anything, except to affirm a mutual protest against coerced religion. The history of the Druids will be found elsewhere in the various books of this canon. The founders varied considerably in their degree of religious commitment. Some believed in no God, others in their own uncertainty, and others in the Christian religion. I am a believer in Christianity, and still hold myself as such. Attacks have shifted in time from charges of insincerity to charges of emptiness and lack of real value. I write to reaffirm a new purpose set forth elsewhere in the canon. Druidism boasts no ethos. Since Druidism has never claimed to be a religion, dogmatism has always seemed incompatible with the organization. This does not mean that, as an individual Druid, I have no ethic, nor that any others who call themselves Druid are without beliefs as to what is right and wrong. As Druids, however, we can only affirm a mutual desire to ask ourselves questions about the meaning of life, and about the degree to which religious truth can be truth for us. If I were to pass on any advice to my followers, it would be to never consider that they have found, as Druids, the ultimate answer to any of their questions. Druidism is a faith, if a faith, in questioning, not in answering. Awareness to a Druid is an individual thing, to be shared perhaps, but never codified. It has been asked, and again with good reason, if your purpose is to ask and to inquire, then why your use of ritual? Can not men seek for answers without the crutch of a ritual which has no real religious purpose? I can only answer that the Druid ritual has a value because it can be used by different men in different ways. For one man, the sacrifice of life is the offering up of himself to a god or gods. To another, it is an offering up unto his mind to a search for truth. As a priest, I repeat the great answer to calm men's hearts and minds, not as a magical formula of absolution. But for some, the answer is in absolution, washing away the distractions of a week of worry, and reaffirming confidence in the idea of a purpose in life. For one man, the partaking of the waters of life is a mystical sacrament of communion with a god or gods. For another, it is an act of common fellowship with other seekers of the truth. As a priest, I do not seek to consecrate the water to any use with my words, but rather think of my words as a common means for others, who watch and listen, to consecrate the water within themselves. Whether what has been founded at Carleton remains or passes away is now unclear. I will always have a concern for the Druids. My own feeling is that if the experience has helped any men to better see themselves, and to become aware of the problems of life in a new way, then it will have served its purpose. I have called this book the Book of Faith. It is my faith in what I have done and in what I have seen grow. In accordance with the basic principle of Druidism, I do not presume to speak for anyone except for myself. Yet I would add one word to the skeptical, to the vain, and to the self-satisfied. Before you, O reader, pass a judgment on the Reformed Druids, look first into your own heart, and be very sure that all is right and at peace. Then, without false pride, ask those who call themselves Druids what they have learned from being Druids. Then, when you have weighed the amused against the serious, the scoffers against the men who call themselves aware, then only you will be able to judge. In the name of the Earth Mother, the great personification of all that moves and walks and lives and is upon the earth, and in the name of Baal, whose source of all truth, without whom no Druid is aware, but whose nature remains to each man his own mystery, I ask upon you peace. May you, in your own way, find the truth as I have found it. So be it. David Fisher, April 12th, 1964. The Epistle of David the Chronicler, by David Frangquist, 1964. Carleton and Berkeley Apocryphas. Chapter the First. To Norman Nelson, Patriarch of the Order of Brachiaca, from his devoted servant David Frangquist, a priest of the Order of Brachiaca and Patriarch of the Order of Belenos. It is with deep regret that I was required to postpone the writing of this epistle until the present time. It was my earnest desire that I should communicate to you only the fullest details of these experiences. It was therefore necessary to wait until all the events herein recounted and transpired before I could set them down on paper. I would assure you, however, that I did receive the epistles which you so graciously sent to me, and have read them with great interest. But there are a number of points which you have made which do cause me some concern. Concerning your reference to yourself as the Archdruid of the South Dakota group, I would remind you that an Archdruid must be elected by the members of his grove, but that the only requirement in the formation of the grove is that each of the 3 officers be properly filled by election. You mention only one other person as being a member. Perhaps there is yet another whom you did not mention? I keep in mind the bishop, who I'm sure would participate excellently in the position of server. Of much more concern to me, however, is your comment that it all did now seem so much like play acting. It is with this that I should like to deal with at some length, drawing freely from my experiences of this last summer. Chapter the 2nd. When I first came to arrive at Makajawan, I was fully resolved to there establish my mission. But it was only with great difficulty that I did succeed in persuading 2 of my friends to attend the ceremony at midsummer, which it was my duty to perform nevertheless. But I was to be greatly disappointed in my efforts, for in the following 2 weeks I was able to persuade no one to join me in the worship of the Earth Mother. But the writings of our cause were well received, such that after I had made them available, no fewer than 9 people did attend the services which were held during the next 2 weeks. Now we did continue to meet, and in the course of time there were 7 who did see fit to become Druids of the First Order in the service of the Earth Mother. And so earnest were 2 of these that they did take upon themselves the responsibilities of the Second Order. Now it was at this time they did come unto me, desiring to know if we might form a grove. And at their insistence I did finally agree. And a number there were who were most greatly impressed by our cause. And they did declare that at last had been found that for which they had made their search. Now I bear proudly the title of Archdruid of Makajawan, not because of the title, for in that it is nothing, but because of the light that Druidism has now been able to bring into the hearts of a few people here. I am firmly persuaded that what I have seen this summer is a clear demonstration that our message is an important one. Here there are no restrictions against which to rebel, but only the desire to find truth in our own way. Chapter the 3rd. It is my observation that religion is composed of two parts, the philosophy and the ritual. Should either be absent, there is no longer religion. For without the philosophy, the ritual is but play-acting, and without the ritual, the philosophy lacks the warmth and vitality, which is capable of perpetuating it beyond its originator. For there is in all men a certain desire for the glory of ceremony. Often it is indulged in for its own sake, as in the case of secret organizations and in the worship of the state, which is often confused with patriotism. For ritual is capable of crowding out all else and becoming the end in itself. It is for this reason that we are constantly threatened by the Druid ritual shedding its philosophy and becoming mere play-acting. I am persuaded that our philosophy is valuable, for in nature we have found a peace and a fulfillment that was otherwise lacking, and to eliminate it is simply to encourage non-ritual to become ritual. Rather, as Druids we have endeavored to build a ritual which will be the destroyer of its own importance. We have therefore adopted a ceremony which is sufficiently foreign to our cultural tradition as to shock, whereas being sufficiently close to it to be taken seriously. It is our fervent hope that in this way we will be able to help impress upon men that ritual is only relative, and thus help them to rise above its limitations toward the greater truth beyond. It is for this reason that we must be careful not to admit any ceremony which would be too closely allied with our cultural traditions and which would tend to focus too much attention on the ritual itself. We must not utilize any practice which is not derived directly from ancient Druid custom or from analogies from nature. And as leaders of our cause, we must always keep in mind our principal objectives. For I would again affirm that insofar as we can continue to bring others to a greater appreciation of the wonders of the Earth Mother, I am persuaded that our effort is not in vain. May the peace of the Earth Mother be yours, and may the radiance of Belanos daily illumine your spirit. Peace. Outline of the Foundation of Fundamentals by David Frangquist, 1966. Carleton and Berkeley Apocryphas. Being. A brief catalogue of the major quasi-metaphysical theological conclusions which may be abstracted from and by the application of the Reformed Druid point of view to questions of the ultimate relevance. In outline form. The three pillars, or treasures, or paths, or baskets, or roots, or branches, or wondrous illuminations. Roman numeral 1. The relentless rebellion, threefold. A. The categorical if. No intellectually honest mind can long remain so termed unless it is willing to submit all things to rigorous examination, even the most sacred provinces. Blind faith is no faith, it is blindness. B. The principle of non-confirmation. Applying rigorous scrutiny to the world's religions, we find, especially in Western form, universal claims to exclusiveness. Yet none submits any more proof of its claim than an appeal to faith. Logically, therefore, all are equal. C. The principle of non-conformation. In the face of insoluble problem of selecting the one true faith, most people conform to one of two patterns. 1. The true believer embraces the faith of his fathers wholeheartedly and unquestioningly, fearing to face the logical possibility or probability that he is wrong. 2. The non-believer rejects all faiths out of hand, fearing that he might prove himself a fool by choosing the wrong one. Reformed Druids reject the necessity of conforming to either of these patterns based on fear. True spiritual growth exists only in the relentless rebellion against petrified norms. Roman numeral 2. The paths of paradox, also threefold. A. The ceremonial syndrome. Man is incurably finite. He cannot conceive of spiritual activity except in terms of ritualistic hocus-pocus. But ritual must be carefully selected, or it will independently acquire magical properties of its own. Ritual properly constitutes a springboard for the spirit only. Oak worship is ideal for this purpose. See also Roman numeral 3. B. The primacy of ambiguity. True spiritual growth consisting of personal effort and rebellion, Reformed Druidism must remain devoid of orthodoxy. All writings must be ambiguous and non-final, present dissertation included. C. The principle of non-confirmation rears its ugly head again. You'll get no pat answers here. There being no logical basis for the acceptance or denial of any faith, Reformed Druidism confirms nothing, including Reformed Druidism. You're welcome to, but you're on your own. Roman numeral 3. The last refuge. What do you know? Threefold. A. The noble fivefold formulation. 1. The nature of life. Life is defined as the unity of the spiritual, Baal, and the material, the Earth Mother. Without the material, the spiritual has no form. Without the spiritual, the material is dead. 2. And man? Man, as a living animal, ideally consists of both material and spiritual. 3. And man? Man is unique. This is because he has self-awareness. He passes from self-awareness through self-centeredness to self-importance, thence to self-isolation, resulting in self-misery. 4. Unity for all and all for unity. Man's self-importance cuts him off from the life-giving benefits of unity with the spirit and nature, the material. Druids sometimes call unity awareness. It is the object of religion to restore unity. Most concentrate on the direct attainment of spiritual unity, ignoring or rejecting the material. 5. Back to nature. Druids, at least some of them, believe a good approach is, first, to restore material unity. Having broken down part of the barrier around the self, the rest should then be easier. Hence, Druid nature worship, the ideality of going to worship oaks. B. The basic tenets. The basic tenets of Reformed Druidism, which form the basis, believe it or not, for the preceding discussion, are found in the Constitution of the Reformed Druids, and in another form in the Book of the Law, in the Druid Chronicles Reformed. They are the quintessences of Druidism, such that a person need accept nothing else and still become a Reformed Druid. They are here presented in their most concentrated form. 1. Nature is good. And the second is like unto the first. 2. Nature is good. C. The last refuge. It is simple to grind out these systems. It is the expected thing to do. Perhaps it is useful. It is meaningless. It is simple to sit on the hill of Three Oaks and look at the pretty blue sky. That, too, can be meaningless. It is not so simple to stand alone under the pretty blue sky and watch all your preconceived systems come tumbling down. But when they come tumbling down, there is a refuge in nature. There, one may find a clearing of the head, a freedom from stagnant forms, a beginning, the end. David Frangquist, 6-6-66. Toirdhealbhaigh, The Book of Torvel, by Robert Larson, 1967. Berkeley Apocrypha only. The moonlight shining on the path, blinding. The sister stars brightening the way, dimming. Footfalls heavy, and raises dust in a shimmering cloud of many colors. Softly go, wanderer, where the wood calls and lives. Grass whispers and trees walk as you go your contemplative way. Brain empty, thinking, body dead, living, walking, unfeeling. Tree roots move, snakes trying to entwine your feet and hold you forever, wanting you, loving you, wishing to talk if you dare listen, but you will walk. The owl hoots his song of loneliness, and the terror of the woods frightening you, sending you running happily, joyfully, fearfully, tearfully, through the forest. Seek then to escape the tale that is told. The grass damp beneath you sparkles in the moon, stops, wets, and cools your feet, making you joyful and cold. Feel numb from damp, frigid. Fighting the moonlit trees, continue on out to the city. The grass hastens you away. You are not ready to stay, the woods seem to say. Dew drips heavy, wets the ground, sparkling dew, shimmering in the moonlight, reflecting color schemes, prismatic. Moonbows sparkle from dripping dew, bright and joyful, breaking the moonlight, healing. Rejoicing in it, he wend his way, out from the city down below, up to the fields where flowers grow, to the thicket full of life, through the forest, across the lea, seeing all there is to see. March forward, stepping lightly, trampling life underfoot, apologizing and smiling. Pardon my clumsiness, I'm going up to the ancient oak. Caressing, talking, adoring, age untold, oh so old and wise, wonderful. He stays doing nothing, breathing, absorbing, speaking at time, throwing his head back and laughing, enjoying. Accosting the grass, kissing the flowers, teaching and learning, talking with animals on their way, entranced, pause and tell of nightmare worlds, of strange tales and marveled at his yet stranger tale. Walking onward through the trees, over the thicket, down the rabbit way, to the water hole, moonlight shines through his shape, stars for eyes, moon for heart, meteors for limbs. Onward, onward to the eternal day-night. Smiling goes he, no more seen in the city, no more seen in the field, no more seen but felt and heard, kindly master slave of all. Unwielding of power possessed, yielding of love and life, breath on the wind, yet learning, teaching, preaching. Lore filled in every pore, etheric and solid, whispering into unknown ears. The man the grass teaches how to grow. Toirdhealbhaigh McClorcan, Ardrui Clan na Brachita, Arach. 12th year of the Reform, circa spring 1973, a.k.a. Robert Larson, Order of Dallin ap Landu, Order of Belenos, Archdruid, Berkeley Grove. Letter to My Brothers, by Steve Savitzky, 1968, Carlton Apocrypha only. I am writing these words for all of us, because I am writing them because I am all of us. I find that I am a strange fraternity, knowing you, brothers and sisters, who do not know one another, but who know your brothers and sisters whom I do not know. I will speak for myself and what I know. I have stood upon a hill, and felt the powers of the earth leap out over the nerves of the city bright below. Gazing into a fire, I have seen a life that is old and strange, but glows with the beating of a ruby heart that lies in the breast of darkness. I know now that the trees live guided by a wisdom beyond time, that they weave in their looms of leaves the fabric of space itself and die by fire, to free the secret essence of their souls. I find within myself the labyrinth which I have begun to search. There are many ways. Mine is the power to gaze deep into fires, into the core of things. Mine is the power to speak to the trees and listen to their songs. Mine is the power to walk at the left hand of darkness and at the right hand of the moon. Mine is the power to dance and call the winds together into stillness. There are other powers I have not yet found. We stand together now at the still point of the storm to come, brothers and sisters, afraid, uncertain of our strength. But we are the children of light and darkness. We are the makers of dance and song. We are the joyful servants of earth and sky. I call you together to go forth into the world of men, to learn of yourselves and your powers, and give your lives that life itself not die. I have written these things after reading Demian dazed, From walking down halls of mirrors dazzled by the reflection of myself, I write having consumed green tea in cups uncounted, bread that did not rise, black coffee and black night. I write at the end of a time when nothing has gone quite right, and I have not rated my studies worth the price of coal in hell. I can no longer keep things to myself. Not only must I write, but also share. And so I give you these words, because I am driven, possessed, insane, a fool or a prophet, whatever the difference is. I have told you to save the world, and look into your souls. I tell you to read Demian and vigil upon the hill. I have said you are my brothers. I say you are my world. I will write to you again, and speak with you, and walk with you in city or on hill. And we will cast off these chains for a little while, these chains of time and space, of loneliness, of darkness and of distance and of fear. And we will gaze together into a dying fire upon a hill, and warm ourselves with dance and words and love, until the dawn looks over the world's edge, and we, like it, are part of all we see. I need only bend over that dark mirror to behold my own image, now completely resembling him, my brother, my master, Hesse. Hypocrite lecture, mon semblable, mon frère. Baudelaire. I can call on spirits from the vasty deep. Why, so can I, and so can any man. But do they come when you do call them? Shakespeare. More earlier selections. The Smiley Affair. The Smiley Ladders, Part 1, by Richard Smiley, 1969. New to ARDA 2. Letter to Local Board Number 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Dear Sirs, this is to inform you that, 1. My address has changed to the following. 226 South Grant Street, Apartment 1, West Lafayette, Indiana, 47906. 2. I am no longer a student at Purdue University. 3. I am now a minister, and as such I wish to apply for a draft exemption, Class 4D. If you need any additional information before placing me in this class, I will be glad to provide it. Simply inform me what information is necessary. Yours truly, Richard F. Smiley. Correspondence on Letterhead of Selective Service System. February 20, 1969. Dear Sir, we have received your letter dated February 5, 1969. Please be advised that we can place you in a Minister 4D classification. You will have to have some official verification submitted stating your present status. Yours truly, for the local board, Mrs. Jacqueline Bradbury, Executive Secretary. Correspondence from Richard F. Smiley. To Local Board Number 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Dear Sirs, thank you for your letter of February 20th replying to mine of February 5th in which I informed you that I was a minister. According to your letter, you need some sort of official verification before placing me in Classification 4D. I expected that would be the case. However, your letter was not as specific as I had hoped it would be about what type of verification you wanted. There should be no trouble involved in submitting verification, either from the person who ordained me or from our central organization that I was properly ordained, or verification either from our central organization or from people here in West Lafayette that I am currently engaged in preaching and teaching our beliefs. Is any of these what you had in mind? If so, which would you prefer? If not, would you state more specifically what you want? Thank you very much. Yours truly, Richard F. Smiley. Carbon copy D. Frangquist, S. Savitzky. Subsequent correspondence from Richard F. Smiley. To Local Board Number 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Dear Sirs, I have just received from you a notice of classification SSS Form 110 dated February 25. This notice places me in Class 1A, which seems to contradict your letter of February 20th. I note also that the address on the notice is incorrect. See my letter of February 5th. The address was correct on the letter you sent me on February 20th. I would guess from this that some sort of mistake has been made. Would you check on this and see whether the classification can be withdrawn, or if not, whether there is something else which can be done? See also my letter of February 26. Yours truly, Richard F. Smiley. Carbon copy, David Frangquist, S. Savitzky. Subsequent correspondence on letterhead of Selective Service System. To Richard F. Smiley. Dear Sir, we have received your letter dated February 26, 1969, and the 28th. Please be advised that the local board has met on February 6, 1969, and you had already been issued a 1A when I wrote to you on the 20th of February. The last school information that we have indicates that you were a mathematics major at Purdue. When did your seminary training take place? What church or religion do you belong to? And when were you ordained? Your 1A classification is correct at the present time until we receive new information for the local board to consider. Yours truly, for the local board, Mrs. Jacqueline Bradbury, Executive Secretary. Subsequent correspondence from Richard F. Smiley, 1969, March 24. To Local Board 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Dear Sirs, in accordance with our previous correspondence, see my letters at February 5, 26, and 28, and yours of February 20 and March 13. I submit the following information for your consideration. I am a minister in the Reformed Druids of North America. I received my training concurrently with my regular undergraduate education at Carleton College, Northfield, Minnesota. I was ordained a third-order priest of the Reformed Druids in October 1964. I currently conduct services, etc., for the Reformed Druids in Greater Lafayette, Indiana. I believe the Military Selective Service Act of 1961 would term me as a duly ordained minister of religion, Section 16G1. The term duly ordained minister of religion means a person who has been ordained in accordance with the ceremonial, ritual, or discipline of a church, religious sect, or organization established on the basis of a community of faith and belief, doctrine, and practices of a religious character, to preach and to teach the doctrines of such church, sect, or organization, and to administer the rites of ceremonies thereof in public worship, and who, as his regular and customary vocation, preaches and teaches the principles of religion, and administers the ordinances of public worship as embodied in the creed or principles of such church, sect, or organization. Consequently, I ask that you reopen my classification and consider placing me in Class 4D, Ministerial. I will ask our central organization to write to you confirming the above information. Sincerely, Richard F. Smiley. Carbon copy, D. Frangquist, S. Savitzky. Subsequent correspondence sent by Richard F. Smiley, 1969, March 27th, to Local Board Number 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Dear Sirs, a few days ago, March 24, I sent you some information regarding my status as a minister. I am currently in Class 1A, according to your letter on March 13. You had not yet received my letter of February 5th, in which I informed you that I was a minister, when you classified me. Thus my letter of March 24 contains facts not considered when the registrant was classified which, if true, would justify a change in the registrant's classification. See Selective Service Regulations 1625.2. So in that letter I requested that you reopen my classification and place me in Class 4D, Ministerial. I have every hope that you will do this, but if you decided not to reopen my classification, I would want to request a personal appearance so that I could find out the reason for your decision and supply you with any information I might have overlooked before. Unfortunately, I cannot delay my request until I find out whether a personal appearance will be necessary, since my notice of classification was dated February 25th. My right to request a personal appearance evidently expires today. So if you do reopen my classification, feel free to ignore this letter. However, if for any reason you decide not to reopen my classification, please schedule me for a personal appearance. Thank you. Sincerely, Richard F. Smiley. Carbon copy, D. Frangquist, S. Savitzky. The Smiley Letters, Part 2, by Richard Smiley and Steve Savitzky, 1969. New to ARDA 2. In correspondence from Richard Smiley, 1969, March 28, to Steve Savitzky, Carleton College, Northfield, Minnesota, 55057. Dear Steve, I put this in business form so there would be an inside address on the letter for our records. I am enclosing carbon copies of all my correspondence with my draft board. I think you should add these to the permanent files of the Council of Dalanap Landu. Someone may, in the future, want to know how it was done. By the way, I suspect the permanent files of the Council have fallen by the wayside. If so, I strongly suggest that you revive them. One item which should be in the files is a report which Dave Frangquist sent out at the end of his term of office. In this report there is a list of the 7 people who were at the time members of the Council, and on that list is the year in which each became a third-order priest. These are the only records you will have which indicate that I was ordained. By the way, in case you are interested, I believe the ceremony, done by Dave Frangquist, was at about the time of the last full moon of Fowar in 1964. So that you will be able to say so in the letter, I hereby ask you to write my draft board, confirming that I was ordained a third-order priest. I'll enclose a rough draft of the letter as I think you should write it. Actually, although I call it a rough draft, I think it is probably well worded right now. Probably the only change you will want to make is in your name. Since I don't know your full name as you sign it, I put down Steve Savitzky. Presumably this is not the way you sign letters and should be changed. I also enclose a certified mail slip to be pasted at the front of the envelope at the left, see instructions on the back of slip, and a receipt form to be glued to the back of the envelope after it has been sealed. Don't get these very wet when gluing them on, there isn't much glue. Also enclosed are a 40-cent stamp, a 10-cent stamp, airmail, and a 30-cent stamp, special delivery. These should all be pasted on the envelope. Airmail to the right and special delivery to the left, I guess. Mail the letter at the post office, certified registered mail window, bright and early Tuesday morning. It has to get to Waukegan sometime Wednesday. So get it typed up by sometime on Monday. You'll notice that it is dated April 1. I thought that was a nice touch. As I think I mentioned to you over the telephone, there may be some sort of investigation to make sure that the Reformed Druids are a legitimate organization. So let me point out to reassure you that as far as I can tell, not only are the Reformed Druids a legitimate organization, but also, if you read the Selective Service Act, I think Reformed Druid priests are eligible for a 4D classification if their regular and customary vocation is being a Reformed Druid priest. I think my draft board will write to Carlton. I would very much appreciate it if you would find out from Dean Smith whether he is willing to back us up at all. If he is, tell him the whole story, or as much of it as he wants to know. I will call you up Sunday night to make sure there has been no trouble with the letter. It would be nice if you could get someone else to type it up and go through the whole bit with the secretary's initials, as I have indicated. In any case, make sure the letter is extremely neat, a professional-looking job with preferably no erasures. I have sent you most of the letterheads we printed up. They should have arrived by now. But in case they haven't, I'll enclose a few of the ones I kept here for emergencies. By the way, when you open the package of letterheads, you'll find that there are also some matching blank sheets for the second and third pages of letters. According to a secretarial handbook I consulted in our library, the front side of the paper is the side from which the watermark printing can be read. As I have indicated on the letter, make carbon copies for me and Dave Frangquist and send them to us. I am enclosing 2 extra airmail stamps for this purpose. In case you don't have Dave's address, it is D. Frangquist, 625B, Fort Baker, Sausalito, California, 94965. Also, keep a carbon copy of the letter for the permanent files of the Council. Attach the certified mail slip and the receipt when it comes back to your copy of the letter. After you've typed the letter, make a notation on the 3 copies that the letter was typed on the Carleton Council letterhead. I'll enclose carbon paper and onion skin to make the copies with. Be sure to use a nice, neat letterhead for this letter. They vary some in quality. On the envelopes, there is sometimes a little smearing of the symbol at the right, and on the letterhead itself, there are sometimes flaws in the letters or the symbol because of the lack of ink. I still expect to show up at Carleton one of these days, but I don't know when. When you send the copy of the letter back to me, put in a note telling me when third-term classes are over. I may not get there until almost then. My plans are more definite than when I wrote the previous page. I'll be going to a conference Sunday through Wednesday. It's a conference on computer graphics at the University of Illinois. We'll be leaving here about 4 p.m., 3 p.m. your time. If you get this letter Sunday afternoon, Call me collect, station to station, immediately after reading it. If there is no answer, I have left, and I will call you at 10:15 p.m. Sunday your time. Incidentally, I will be staying at the Ramada Inn in Champaign, Illinois. The number there is 217-352-7891. In an emergency, you could try to get me there after 10 p.m. Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. That's local time, which I think is the same as Minnesota time. Thanks for your help. And to close with the traditional close, peace be with those who walk in the ways of the Earth Mother. Dick Smiley. P.S. Dave Frangquist thinks we should have gotten a post office box and used that as the address on the letterheads. For the record, I'll put down in writing here 2 things. 1, I agree that it would be more impressive, although I'm not sure that even with a post office box we would be believable. 2, the reasons we decided differently were that it would cost more money that way. The money and bother of having to go down to the post office to check for mail all the time would impose a strain on the rather weak organizational structure of the Druids. And I guess this last point is just summary. We are guaranteed that the Carleton address will be permanent. Carbon copy D. Frangquist. Subsequent correspondence typed on Carleton College Council of Dallon Aplandu letterhead, dated April 1st, 1969. 2. Local Board 151. Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Gentlemen, we have received a letter from Richard F. Smiley, stating that you wished confirmation that he was a minister of the Reformed Druids of North America. Our records show that Mr. Smiley was ordained a third-order priest, i.e. a minister, in 1964. We would appreciate being kept informed of Mr. Smiley's classification. Sincerely, the Reformed Druids of North America, Stephen Savitzky, Chairman of the Council. Certified return receipt requested, airmail special delivery, carbon copy D. Frangquist, R. Smiley. The Smiley Letters, Part 3, by Richard Smiley and Richard Shelton, new to ARDA 2. Correspondence on letterhead of Selective Service System. 2. Richard F. Smiley. Dear Mr. Smiley, the local board requests a letter from the chairman of the council of your church or your superior verifying that your full-time occupation is preaching and teaching the doctrine of your church. When this information is received, your file will be reconsidered for a 4D classification. Please give this your immediate attention. Very truly yours, Mrs. Henrietta Morton, Executive Secretary. Subsequent correspondence from Richard F. Smiley to Richard M. Shelton, The Reformed Druids of North America, Carleton College, Northfield, Minnesota, 55057. 1969, June 5. Dear Dick, I suggest you read my letter of March 28th before or after reading this. I am enclosing 2 copies of the letter from my draft board, the original and a carbon copy. The latter is for the RDNA files. I have kept a copy for my files and another one which I will take to Dave Frangquist. Notice that the letter is dated June 9th. That's Monday. On that day, probably the day you will get this, take the letter to the post office after first signing it, putting it in the envelope, sealing the envelope, and gluing the receipt to the back of the envelope, and give it to the man at the certified registered mail window. When he gives you back the receipt from the front of the envelope, attach it to your copy of the letter and file it. The return receipt presents more of a problem. I suggest you take the other envelope I have enclosed to the Carleton post office and ask them to use it to send you the receipt when it comes. Also ask them to forward to you, during the summer, any mail which comes addressed to the Reformed Druids. Another possibility is asking Dean Smith to handle it, but I don't think that's a good idea. You'd better take the correspondence concerning me home with you this summer, too, in case you need it. But be sure to bring it back in the fall. It begins to look as if this could be important to some other people, too. I am also enclosing for the files the latest letter from my draft board to me, dated May 27th, and a cartoon strip which appeared in the Chicago Tribune on May 1st. As I told you on the telephone, I hope to see you next week up at Carleton. If I don't, thanks for your help. Peace be with those who walk in the ways of the Earth Mother. Dick Smiley, carbon copy, D. Frangquist. Subsequent correspondence from Richard Shelton to Dave Frangquist. 5 June 1969. Dear Dave, This is just a quick note to inform you of my investiture as Archdruid of Carleton pro tempore to succeed Steve Savitzky, who will be, hopefully, at Stanford this summer or fall. I have been in touch with Dick Smiley and have the file concerning his ordeal with the powers that be. I would appreciate copies of any official missives you may be asked to write on his behalf. Also, much needed is a list of all priests of third and higher orders known to you, together with addresses of the same, etc. My summer and home address is enclosed. I'll send out more official announcements, proposals, and so forth later. Peace. Dick Shelton. Subsequent correspondence on Council of Dallan-Aplandu letterhead, dated June 9, 1969, to Local Board Number 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Gentlemen, Richard F. Smiley has informed us that you have recently requested a letter from us confirming that he actually is teaching and preaching the doctrine of Reformed Druidism, in contrast to our letter of April 1, 1969, in which we simply confirmed that he was qualified to do so. Mr. Smiley's current work is of a missionary nature. That is, he is in the process of establishing a church or grove, as we prefer to call it, in an area where previously we have not had one. We will have only indirect evidence of Mr. Smiley's activities until the group which he has formed in Greater Lafayette applies for formal affiliation. Accordingly, we feel it would be inappropriate for us to testify to Mr. Smiley's activities until this group has become formally affiliated with the Reformed Druids, and regular communications are established. We anticipate such action shortly, but in order to expedite matters, we are advising Mr. Smiley to ask some members of his group to send you letters testifying to his current activities. If we can be of any further assistance, please contact us. Sincerely, the Reformed Druids of North America, Richard M. Shelton, Chairman of the Council. Carbon copy, D. Frangquist, R. Smiley. Subsequent correspondence from Richard Shelton, 28 June 1969. Dear Dave Frangquist, after I mailed my report of 24 June, it struck me that Dick Smiley might not have returned to Lafayette yet. Since he mentioned that he was going to see you, it seems possible that he will be with you now, or that he has not even reached you yet. If he is, or when he does, tell him that he will find a copy of the letter very similar to yours waiting for him. Note added by Richard Shelton in 2003. Presumably this referred to a confirmation by Frangquist that he ordained Smiley in 1964. A copy of this seems not to have survived. The letter continues, if he has already left, let me know if you know when he plans to return to Lafayette and where I could reach him if he doesn't plan to return soon. Secondly, do you have a current address for Dave Fisher, Norm Nelson, and Robert Larson? Dave's and Robert's reports were returned marked, moved, not forwardable, and I suspect Norm's to be. I've written Carleton Alumni Service and haven't heard yet. Peace. Dick Shelton. Subsequent correspondence on Council of Dallan-Aplandu letterhead. August 1st, 1969. To Local Board 151, Selective Service System, 213 Water Street, Waukegan, Illinois, 60085. Gentlemen, Richard F. Smiley has informed us of your recent decision not to reopen his Selective Service classification file. We feel, in light of our correspondence with you, that there has been a misunderstanding concerning Mr. Smiley's activities. As we stated in our letter of April 1st, Mr. Smiley is an ordained Third Order priest, and as such is charged with the ministry and dissemination of our faith. He is accordingly performing missionary work in Indiana. If we can furnish any further information to clarify this matter, please inform us immediately. Sincerely, the Reformed Druids of North America. Richard M. Shelton, Chairman of the Council. Carbon copy, D. Frangquist, R. Smiley. Subsequent correspondence from Richard Shelton dated 3 August 1969. Dear Dave Frangquist, enclosed is a copy of the letter to Dick Smiley's draft board, sent at his instigation. Regarding my letter of 24 June, Shelton to Council, Dick mentioned that he thought it unnecessary to write liturgy before it was needed. I agree, and should have made it clear that I had no intention of having consecration orders for orders 8 through 10, or marriage ceremonies written until the need arises. However, I feel the rest is needed and should be collected. I have had no responses yet. I shouldn't have expected too much in the summer. There have been several address changes, and the alumni service has lost track of Robert Larson completely. I have yet to hear from USD regarding addresses for Anne Balouf and Wesley Hubbard. Fisher is in England. Was in England? Norman Nelson is at the College of Emporia, Kansas, and Steve Savitzky is still at 1640 Bay Road. Try to get in touch with him. Peace. Dick Shelton. The editor's note. The letter trail abruptly ends here, but the result was that by the time the hearing was to be held, Dick Smiley was already too old to be considered for the draft, leaving the issue unresolved.